Hey guys, Dalek44 here. I need no introduction, but I got one anyway. Well, it's the month of December, Christmas is coming, and I was thinking of some kind of video I could do that seems Christmassy. And then I thought I'm working on something Christmassy anyway. So why not do something entirely different? And then I thought about looking at a popular show from my childhood and see if it still holds up. And then it hit me. Why not have a look at Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends? Yes, we all know the show's gone downhill since 2004, and the CGI series can't compete with the classic models. But we still ask each other, wasn't Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends a great part of our childhood? And the answer is yes. Yes, it was. All the stories were about railway logic, friendship, and of course the characters themselves, who are unforgettable. And before you ask, no, I'm not going to do Series 8 onwards. That's just not the show I grew up with. I'm going to stick strictly to Series 1 to 7, including Thomas and the Magic Railroad, because those are the shows and movie I grew up with. The hit entertainment versions from 2004 onwards will not be included in this. It's strictly Series 1 to 7 and Thomas and the Magic Railroad. They're the ones I grew up with. And just remember that this is all opinion, so don't go ape shit if you don't agree with me. Even if you are completely wrong. Yes, as you could tell as a kid, I loved the show. In fact, I was surprised to hear that Hit Entertainment still cares about the classic series, even though they're making the show go downhill. They care about it so much that they keep releasing the first 7 series on DVD. They've even recently re-released them with the restored footage. Well, for Series 1 and 2 and 3 anyway. But I was still surprised to hear that Hit Entertainment actually still cared about the classic series. And the proof of that was in the latest film, Blue Mountain Mystery. But now that I'm older, does the classic series still hold up? Is it still as memorable as it was when I was a kid? Well, I'm going to have a look at the first 7 series of the show to find out. So sit back and enjoy this series that I like to call Thomascember. So here we go, the first ever series of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. It was originally broadcast on television in 1984. Every single episode was based off of a story from the Reverend W. Awdry, including the one-off story, Thomas's Christmas Party, which was commissioned by the staff. The stories focused mainly on Thomas getting his own branch line and the adventures of the other engines, including Edward, James, Henry, Gordon, Percy and Toby. And they introduced a number of the other characters like Terence the Tractor, Bertie the Bus, and of course the Fat Controller. The first few episodes were mainly showing Thomas's first job when he was pulling coaches for the big engines to take on journeys. But then after some time he gets tired of it and wants to pull his own train. And he gets a couple of chances to do so, but they don't really go very well. And then after an incident where he rescues James after being derailed by the troublesome trucks, he's given his own branch line and 2 coaches called Annie and Clarabelle. And then the rest of the stories are just about him and his friends in their daily lives. It even showed us what the big engines got up to when Thomas left to run his branch line, and how angry they were that they had to shunt their own coaches. Because they spent so many years waiting for Thomas to do it for them. And that comes to one of my favourite episodes, Tenders and Turntables, which was the start of the Troublesome Engine saga, as I like to call it. It just shows that the big engines were used to having the coaches being shunted for them, and that they don't like doing it themselves because they're lazy, or as the coaches said, lazy and slack. So they end up going on strike just to prove to the Fat Controller that they shouldn't have to shunt their own coaches, which was exactly why Percy was introduced in the series. Then the stories after that was just showing Henry's problems, like feeling ill at times. And then we discovered it was because of the coal he was using, so they had him using Welsh coal instead. And then after a crash he had, he was sent to crew where he was given a new shape and a larger firebox. And then after that story we get introduced to Toby the Tram Engine, who was brought to the island of Sodor because of Thomas getting in trouble with an angry police officer. And boy was he angry.
Don't be funny.
And then the show ended of course with Thomas's Christmas Party, which seems kinda normal for a show like this, ending with a Christmas related episode. Many of the sets from this series would stay on with the show for years, including the Big Station, Wellsworth, Gordon's Hill, Henry's Tunnel, and Tidmouth Sheds, which was just known as The Sheds. In the UK it was narrated by former Beatles drummer Ringo Starr, But then he and American comedian George Carlin later recorded additional narration for the stories for the American audience, and The Flying Kipper is one of the best episodes I've ever seen. In fact, it used to scare me as a kid. Well, mainly the crash scene. But I suppose it was because it was set during night, and the way they shot the crash scene was so realistic. And I didn't even notice there was a hand on Henry's tender at the time. But for the time it was really awesome. And plus everybody remembers this episode for the kick-ass Flying Kipper theme. In fact, everybody remembers it so well that almost every YouTuber has tried to do their own version of it, which are really as good as the classic. The music was done by Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell, and they kick ass, especially with the main theme. As soon as I heard the main theme for the show, it became very addicting in a good way. I've never heard children's TV show composers as good as them, and, well, I still haven't. Their music really suits the scenes for the episodes, and it creates tension in the runaway crash scenes. So overall, Series 1 still holds up to this day. It has memorable scenes, some of the best music, and some of the funniest lines and stories you will ever see. I always loved Series 1, and I still will.